Hello everyone, good afternoon. So hope you all are well. Today I am going to take a workshop on ethical hacking and cyber security using Kali Linux. Okay. Myself Sanchan Vomit, working as a senior information security analyst in ISOEH data securities. Okay. So today I am going to take the workshop on it, on the topic, the most today's most important topic like cyber security and information security, right? So today I'm going to cover what is hacking and what is ethical hacking, and a brief overview of hacking and different types of hacker and the ethical hacking process, hacker versus cracker, and some recent newses over the cybersecurity and future scope of cybersecurity, and some attack vector like maybe how to scan or how to gather some information from a target, okay, and how to scan a particular machine, uh, like port scan, OS scan, all these things, and how to hack that particular machine by using all that information which we gathered in information gathering phase, right? So I'm going to discuss all about that, and how to protect your system from all that type of hacking, okay. So but the problem is, the thing is that this is a very small session, so I'm not going to cover up all the details in cybersecurity field because it's a very huge field. So I'm just trying to give you a brief idea about ethical hacking and cybersecurity, and how to secure your system, okay, and finally what to do if you want to be a professional hacker. So I will also guide you in this scenario, okay. So let's start. So what is hacking and who are the hacker? So basically hacking means to find out the loopholes or vulnerabilities. So what is a vulnerability? Vulnerability is basically the weakness of a particular system, right? So hacking is basically find out the loopholes or vulnerabilities of a particular system or network or web application. Vulnerability may be anywhere, okay. So find out that particular vulnerability, and by using that vulnerability or loopholes further penetrating into the system, that is get into the system, okay, that is hacking, right? And who are the hacker? The person who enter or penetrate inside the system using the existing loopholes or vulnerabilities into the system or network or web application. So they are the hacker. Now the point is that, so why we need this type of hacking or hacker? Because this is what I am telling now. Okay, this is just to enter or get penetrate inside the system without the permission of the user, right? So why this is necessary? So this is necessary because of that from a hackers or ethical hackers point of view, we penetrate or we break the system or we enter inside the system by using the vulnerabilities or loopholes which we get in the uh, scanning or information gathering phase. So if we able to penetrate inside the system, that means the loopholes or vulnerabilities exist into the system. So to stop or mitigate that vulnerability, we need to find out the loopholes first or vulnerability first, by which a hacker or bad hacker or cracker may go penetrate or inside that particular system and further get all the sensitive information or maybe give some damage, right? To protect against that particular user, that particular hacker or cracker, we need to hack the system at first to check is there any vulnerability or weaknesses exist into the system which may be exposed by a bad hacker or cracker, right? So we need to find out that vulnerability and further we need to mitigate or that particular vulnerability that further one bad hacker or cracker cannot be entered into the system. So that is the purpose. So for that, as an ethical hacker, we need a permission from the owner, right? So hacking is basically uh, finding out the loopholes or vulnerabilities into the system by which one can penetrate inside the system without the user permission. That means this is basically a unauthenticated enter inside the system, right? But that task is permitted by the user or not, that depends. If user give the permission to the hacker to hack their system to find out the loopholes, then it's become a part of ethical hacking, and the hacker who hacked the system by using the uh, vulnerability and the permission of the owner, they are the ethical hacker, right? So here is the difference between hacking or hacker and ethical hacking or ethical hacker. So the hacker is basically a person who is extremely interested in exploring the things and working of the computer system or network system to find out the vulnerabilities and penetrate inside the system without the user permission, right? That means unauthenticated access of the system and without the user permission. And the ethical hacker, they also penetrate inside the system, means unauthenticated access of the system using the vulnerabilities or loopholes exist in the network or system or maybe in the web application, but with user permission. So they are the ethical hacker, right? Now there are different types of hacker are there, like white hat hacker, black hat hacker, gray hat hacker, hacktivist, freaker, okay, script kiddies. So lots of type of hacker are there. So mainly there are three types of hacker are there. One is white hat hacker. That means the person who hacked the system with permission, right? And they are the good guys. They don't use their skills for illegal purpose. Okay, so they only use their skills to with a good intention. Okay, and computer security expert and help to protect from black hat, right? So, and the black hat hacker, they hack the system with a bad intention. They are the bad guys and use their skills maliciously for personal gain, maybe to expose the sensitive information or maybe some uh, monetary fraud involved with that. So basically with a bad intention, right? So they are the black hat hacker. And gray hat hacker, so by name we see gray means the combination of black and white. That means the gray hat hacker, sometimes they are black and sometimes they are white. So it's basically a combination of white hat and black hat hackers. And role of grey hat hackers is to provide the national security, maybe sometimes, or maybe sometimes they do some illegal tasks. Okay, so they basically very much mixture of good guys and bad guys like this. Okay, so they are the grey hat hacker. And there are some basic terms are also there which is related to ethical hacking or cyber security. So I'm just going to discuss about some basic term regarding the cyber security, like vulnerability. I already told you, and too many times I'm used the term vulnerability. So it's basically a weakness, okay, in a system or in a network or in a web application, whatever it is, by which allows a hacker or cracker to break or hack into the system or compromise into the system security, right? Then exploit is nothing but the code that basically allows an attacker to take the advantage of the vulnerability which is exist into the system or into the network or into the web application, right? So that means suppose we get some vulnerability into a system. So to use that system, we need some code which basically use that vulnerability of that particular system, which we basically known as a exploit, right? And the payload, that is the actual code that runs over a system after the exploitation, right? By which one can maybe collect the information or do some task into the victim machine. So that is the payload. Okay. Now, there are mainly 5 hacking processes are there. So which we known as the 5 phase of hacking. So it's basically starting from the footprinting or reconnaissance, and then scanning, then gaining access, then maintaining access, and lastly covering tracks. Okay. So what is reconnaissance or footprinting? Basically the initial phase or first steps of ethical hacking is basically information gathering, right? So in first phase of hacking, we basically gather the information about the target, right? Now information gathering is divided into 2 parts. One is passive information gathering and another one is active information gathering. So in passive information gathering, we gather information from the victim or target without connecting or communicating with the victim machine, right? And that means suppose we want some uh, information about the target, right? But we directly didn't connect with the target. We ask someone else for the information, or maybe some third party source we collect the information. So that is passive information gathering. That means we gather the information not by directly contacting or communicating with the victim machine, right? And reconnaissance or footprinting is basically a passive information gathering part. So how can you gather the information about the passive, means how can you gather information passively? I can give you some example, right? Suppose we want to gather some information about a website, right? So for that we can use some tools or web application like Udp or maybe Netcraft, uh, right? Or maybe sometimes we can use the archive, okay, archive.org, by which we can get the information from any uh, web application in any previous date, right? And we also sometimes use some advanced Google search to limit down our result, right? So I can give you some example. Let's suppose we are using who is lookup to gather the information about a particular website, right? So let's open who.is lookup. Okay. Now suppose I want to gather some information about the domain, suppose flipkart.com. Okay. So it will take some time to fetch the information from who is lookup. So let's wait for the result. Okay, then let's use netcraft. Okay, once we load the which lookup for that particular web application, we can check the output. So meanwhile, I'm checking the netcraft.com. Okay, so suppose I'm going to check the URL microsoft.com. Okay, okay. Now let's see. We got lots of information. So the site title Microsoft official homepage. Site rank is also there at 2958. Netcraft risk rating is 0 out of 10. Network hosting company Microsoft US Central. Okay. Domain name is Microsoft.com. Name server is also there. Domain register is also there. Name server organization is with markmonitor.com. Organization name is also there. Okay. DNS is also there. So see, lots of information are there, and IP delegation information is also there. IPv4 address. Okay, and country and the description. Uh, the information about SSL and TLS is also there. So now see, supported TLS extension is also there. Then application layer protocol negotiation H2, that information is also there. So we can see lots of information we can gather from netgraph tool, right? Hosting information, protocol version TLS 1.3 is running, public key length is 2048, public key hash is also there, okay. Certificate revocation list is there, server is Kestrel server is used, and validity period is also there. So lots of information we can gather from here. Cipher is also there, TLS AES 128, GCM SH 256. See. So, and uh, all the subserver and their IP address and the web server and the operating system and last in information that is also there. So from this tool we can get lots of information, right? Now other than this, I also told you about the tool like archive.org. So let's check the tool archive.org, right? Okay, so here is archive.org. So it's basically like a webback machine, right? That means we can get information about a particular web application or website in any previous date. Now suppose I'm in uh, at the time 13th April 2021, right? Now suppose I want to check some web application into any other previous date, right? So let's suppose we want the history or the previous data about the web application like flipkart.com. Okay. Now see, from this graph we can check it started in the year 2007, and in the detailed calendar, from the detailed calendar we can get this is started from June 8 and the time is 15 hour 12 minute 18 second. So it first updated in 15 hour 12 minute and 18 second on 8th June 2007. Now suppose I want to check how the web application look like on that particular date after that particular updatation, right? So let's see. So it's look like flipkart.com is coming soon. Okay. So let's see in any further date. Suppose on 28th December 2007. Okay. So the updation is on 1 hour 18 minute 25 second. So let's check how the web application is look like on that particular date after the updation. So it's look like this. So it's basically selling the books at that time. Okay. So you can check this. So now suppose go to some date of 2014 and now see how popular is the website, and in a single day it's around 6 updated there, right? So you can check web application after any updatation, right? Let's see. Yeah, see. So it's look like this into that particular date. So this way we can check any website into any previous date, right? by using this tool archive.org. So that's why we uh, known this archive as a wayback machine also, because we can check any website into any previous state, right? Now we can also may use some advanced search parameter in Google search by which one can really limit down their result, right? I'm giving you one such example, right? Suppose I want the information, means I want to search into a particular URL, right? So for that we use if URL, okay, and in URL, suppose I want to search from Microsoft.com, okay, and suppose we want to search a particular file type. Suppose file type is PDF. Now see the result. So from here we can see, we can really limit down our result into the domain or URL Microsoft.com and file type is PDF. Similarly, see, we can get all the PDF file, PDF, PDF, PDF into the domain Microsoft.com, Microsoft.com, Microsoft.com. So this way we can really limit down our result by using this kind of advanced search parameter, right? So in URL, in site, okay, then file type, so in title. So this type of advanced search parameter is also there, right? So sometimes, which is known as Google hacking, which can give us the result, more specific result of a particular search, right? Okay. So this way, by using the advanced search parameter in Google search, we can also limit down our result and we can also collect the more information about our target. So these are the example of passive information gathering or reconnaissance part, right? Now after reconnaissance, the scanning is also there. What is scanning? I already told you there are two types of information gathering are there. One is passive information gathering and another one is active information gathering. So in passive information gathering, we gather the information not by directly contacting or communicating with the victim machine. So we can get the information from any other source, right? So we check, means till now we're discussing about the passive information gathering, that is the reconnaissance part. Now in active information gathering, we gather the information about a particular target by directly contacting or communicating with the victim machine, right? So that means suppose I want some information about you, I directly ask you and gather the information. So that is active information gathering, and scanning is basically a active information gathering. So what kind of information we can gather in active information gathering or scanning? We can gather the information like which port is open, which port is closed, which operating system is running, which service is running on which port, and what are the different versions, and what are the vulnerabilities exist into the system or network or web application. So we can gather all that information, right? Hello, hello. আছি বলো। আচ্ছা, আমি একটু পরে কল করি অ্যাকচুয়ালি একটা লাইভ সেশন চলছে ইউটিউবে। হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ। হুম। So, uh, let's start with scanning. So, for scanning, we use different tools like Nmap or some other tools is also there like NetScan, AMRI scanner, Natures. But the best tool about the scanning is Nmap, right? So, Nmap is an open source tool and it's inbuilt in Kali Linux. So, before going to start the tool Nmap, I just uh, give a brief idea about the scanning concept, right? So mainly there are 5 types of scanning are there. I'm just write down all the main important type of scanning one by one. First one is network scan, right? So what is network scan? In network scan, we find out all the live host in the network, right? Means suppose as a hacker or ethical hacker, I am connected to a particular network. So in network scan, we find out all the live host in the network, right? Now, number two, port scan. In port scan, we can get the information about a particular port is open or not. Okay. Means suppose like port 80 is open, HTTP service is running like this. Now number three, service scan. So in service scan, we can get the information about a particular service. Means which service is running in which port and what particular version of that service is running. Right. So you can get all that detailed information in service scan. Now OS scan is also there. So that is the operating system scan. That means which operating system is running into the victim machine. We can get the information about that. And lastly, the most important scan, that is vulnerability scan. That means to find out the loopholes or weakness of a particular system or network or web application. That is vulnerability scan. Okay. So let's start all these type of scanning practically, right? So let's open the operating system Kali Linux and Nmap is inbuilt in Kali Linux. So let's start with Kali Linux. So here is my Kali Linux and I hosted all these machines into my virtual platform. So virtualization is very important, right, for ethical hacking or cyber security purpose. Why? Because for cyber security purpose, we need to solve different machine, different operating system, different vulnerability, which is may not be exist in a single machine, right? Means suppose sometimes we need to hack a Linux machine, sometimes we need to hack a Windows machine, like this, right? So for that purpose, what we need to do, we need a attacker machine that is usually use Kali Linux or maybe someone can also use Parrot. Okay, and we also need some other victim machine or target machine. Sometimes it's maybe Windows 8, Windows Server, Linux, Windows 7, something like this. So we need so many machines for practice purpose in information security. So that's why it is very tough to arrange a separate physical machine for each and every type of operating system, right? So that's why we use this virtualization by which one can host a number of operating system into the virtual machine virtually into a single physical machine, right? So here I hosted my Kali Linux in virtual platform. here is my Kali Linux, and some other machine is also be there. Okay, so here is my Windows machine. So I'm also starting a Windows machine as a target. Okay. So here is my Kali Linux. Let's check the IP address of my Kali Linux. So the IP address of my Kali Linux is 192.168.1.45. Okay. So first type of scanning is the network scan, right? So for network scan, simply you can use a command net discover, which is very popular and very simple, right? So by using the simply command net discover, you can get all the live host into the network. So let's use the command net discover. I just increase the font that you can see the command clearly. Okay. Okay, now see, by simply using the net discover command, we can get all that live host into the network. Okay, now see, it will search for the CIDR number 8, 16, 24, all that. But if we know the CIDR number, that is the subnet of the network, then we can also specify the subnet as well. That will save our time to scan all the machine into a particular subnet, right? By specifying the CIDR number. So let's use the command net discover, then dash or specify the range, then the network ID, that is 192.168.1.0/24, because the subnet is 255.255.255.0. That means first 24 bit is 1 and last 8 bit is 0. That implies first 24 bit is used for the network ID and the last 8 bit is used for the host part, right? So that's why we use the CIDR number, that is /24, to specify that particular network, right? See, we can get all the live host into the network, right? Now, this is net discover is a very simple and popular command, but other than this, there are lots other type of scanning is also there, like port scan, service scan, OS scan. So we need to use dedicated tools for scanning, that is Nmap, which is open source and inbuilt in Kali Linux and Parrot as well. Other than this, we can also use the tools like Nasscom for uh, professional purpose, because Nasscom is not a free tool, it's a paid tool. Okay, and you need to pay to use that particular tool, Nasscom. Okay. So let's start with Nmap. So suppose we try to scan, means we try to network scan using Nmap, right? So before going to the Nmap specific command, first we need to learn about the structure of a Nmap command. Okay, so first we need to use the command name Nmap, right? Now there are few options are there, right? Like timing option. So timing option is vary from T0 to T5. That means there are total 6 timing option is there. T5 is the fastest timing option and T0 is the slowest timing option. So if we decrease the timing option from T5 to T4, T3 like this, means we decrease the timing option, it basically decrease the scan speed. And if we increase the timing option from T0 to T1, T2, T3 like this, it increases the speed as well, right? But now the question is that okay, now the question is that if there is an option of fastest scan like T5, so why we use a lower timing option like T4, T3 or T2 like this, right? The answer is that in we can get more information in lower timing option. That means there is a greater chance to get more information in T4 timing option rather than T5, and in T3 we may get more information rather than T4 like this. But now again the question is that why? Now the answer is that in every timing option there is a waiting time. That means suppose how we perform the scans, we send some request to the victim machine, and according to that victim reply us, and depending upon that particular reply we conclude, right? Okay, this happened, right? So once we send some request to the target or victim, we need to wait for the reply from the victim, right? Now the question is that how much we waited for that, right? We need to specify the waiting time. So in every timing option there is a waiting time, right? Like in T5 there is a waiting time, in T4 there is also another waiting time, right? Now the thing is that in T5 the waiting time is less, right? And in T4 the waiting time is more than T5 timing option. So if we decrease the timing option, the waiting time is more. So that's why suppose some reply is not come up with the specified time in a T5 timing option, that may come in T4 timing option, as the waiting time is greater than the T5 in T4 timing option, right? So depending upon the timing option, it will take much more time in a lower timing option, and there is a greater chance to get more information in lower timing option, right? So depending upon the network speed, we need to use the perfect timing option. If the network speed is slow, then we need to use lower timing option, right? Now there are few scanning option are there. I'm coming up to that particular part. So before that, I'm just trying to find out the live host into the network, right? So I'm using the scanning option -sp. This is basically a ping scan, right? So we are going to ping each and every machine, and whoever give the reply, we conclude that that particular IP is live into the network, right? So that's why we use the ping scan option, that is SP. Then 192.168.0/24 total subnet, right? Let's scan. বলো কি হয়েছে? হুম 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 হুম। ভেঙে গেছে কাজটা? ঠিক আছে, কাজটা হুম 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 হুম। আর কি করা যাবে, বেরিয়ে গেছে তো এখন। নাম্বারটা কি দেখেছো? নাম্বারটা কি দেখেছো? হুম, তাহলে ছেড়ে দাও, আর কিছু করার নেই। হুম, ঠিক আছে, এত টেনশনের কিচ্ছু নেই, কারুর লাগেনি তো? হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে, বুঝেছি, তুমি কাজটা তুলে নিয়ে বাড়ি চলে এসো। না, নিচে পড়ে গেছে তো? হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে, চলে এসো, বাড়ি চলে এসো। হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে, ঠিক আছে, আমি পরে ফোন করছি, হ্যাঁ? So there is no such machine into that particular network. Okay, so let's check my network by using the command ifconfig. So my IP address is 192.168.1.45. So let's scan in this particular network, right? So the command is nmap. Then timing option, I am using the highest timing option because my network is pretty good. And then the network ID, that is 192.168.1.0/24 is the CIDR number, as my netmask is 255.255.255.0. Okay, let's see how many systems are live into this particular network. It will take some time to scan the whole network. Okay. Yeah, see. And get the result. But here we didn't get the list, but in network scan we get the list of all the live hosts, right? So that's why we use the command -sp. As I told you, sp is used for ping scan. We send the ping request and whoever gives the reply of that particular ping request, ICMP request, will conclude that that particular machine is live into the network. Okay, now let's see, we can get a list of all the live IP in that particular network. So 192.168.1.1 is live. 1.19 is also there, 1.30, 36, 44, 157, 45. Right, so all that system are live into that particular network. Right. Now, come to the next part, that is the port scan. Right. So now consider this particular IP as our target, and we are going to perform the net port scan. Right. So the command, as I told you, Nmap is the command. Then timing option, I am using the timing option T5. Then we need to specify we are going to scan TCP port or UDP port, right? For TCP port scan, we have two options, that is ST dash small s capital T, which is a TCP connect scan. What actually happened in TCP connect scan? In TCP connect scan, we establish the connection with the victim machine. Means we establish a full TCP connection. Three-way handshake is happening. That means the client sends SYN packet to receiver and means server, and server acknowledge that to the client, and along with that acknowledgement, server also send a SCK packet, right? And again client send the acknowledgement to the server. So this is a three-way handshake. I hope you all aware about the three-way handshake, as networking knowledge is mandatory for ethical hacking and cyber security, right? So this three-way handshake is happening in full TCP connection. So by using the option -ST small s capital T, we are going to perform the TCP connect scan, and -P is used for port scanning, right? Followed by the port number. Like suppose we want to scan port 80, or we can also scan multiple ports separated by comma 443, 25, like this, right? You can also scan the port by service name, suppose HTTP, right? FTP, like this. Other than in real scenario, you need to scan all the port starting from 0 to 65,535. Okay, this is the complete port range. Okay, so there are basically 65,536 logical ports are there. Alternatively, we can use the option -P- to scan all the ports, and then the target IP address, that is 192.168.1.157, as I consider 157 as our target machine, right? So it will take some time as we scan all the port. Okay, so that's why it will take some time to scan. Okay, let's see. We got the result. So port 903 TCP is open, port 913 TCP is open, and this service is running. So we can get all the open port, right? Okay. Now, suppose we are going to perform the next type of scanning. So that is, suppose you want to scan the UDP port, right? So for that, we can use the option -SU. Okay, rather than the option ST, we can use the option SU. And suppose this time we are limit down our port scan, that is 1 to 200. Okay, so it will scan UDP port 1 to 200 into the target machine 192.168.1.157. So port 137 UDP is open. Sometimes we can also perform the still scan. Means sometimes we cannot able to establish a full TCP connection by three-way handshake. So at that time, if we not able to establish a three-way handshake or full TCP connection, then we cannot get any information. So in this type of scenario, sometimes we establish a hub open connection. That is, the client sent a SYN packet to the server and server acknowledge that to the client. So the connection will establish. Right. So we establish the hub open connection and scan the target to get at least some information. Right. So this is called still scan, and for that we use the option -SS. So this is still scan, right? And this is scan all the TCP, means this scan the TCP port by establishing the half open connection rather than the full TCP connection which is established in the option -ST, right? Right. So we perform the port scan and still scan by establishing the half open connection. Right. Now, suppose next we want to establish, means we want to perform a service scan. Right. So let's see, in this port scan we get the open port and the service which is running. But so what we get extra in service scan? Now suppose for this time our target machine is this machine with the IP address 192.168.1.44, right? So let's scan Nmap, then timing option T5, and if we didn't use any option like TCP scan or UDP scan, by default it will perform TCP scan, right? And if we didn't use any timing option, so by default it will use T3 timing option, right? So simply I am using Nmap. Then for service scan, we use the SV option, okay, and the target IP address. Now this time I am using our target as 192.168.1.44. Okay, see, in service scan we got the open port and the service name and as well as the version of the service. So this version of the service is also important like the port information. So we need the port information because port is the entry point of every connection, right? So if you want to establish a connection with a machine, with our target machine, so we need a open entry point, that is a open port. So that's why port information is very important. If we know which port is open, then we can use that particular port to establish the connection with that target machine. So like this, service scan is also very important. That information is also very important. Why? Because sometimes some particular version of a service is vulnerable. So if you get the particular version of a service, then we can check is that a vulnerable version or not. So if that is a vulnerable version, then we can use that vulnerability of that particular service, means of that particular version of that particular service to further penetrate or establish the connection with the target machine. So that's why service information is also very important, right? So later I will show that why this information is so important, right? So now let's perform the next type of scan, that is OS scan, right? So for OS scan we use the option -O, and see here I didn't use any timing option, so by default it will use timing option -T3, right? But if you try to use any other timing option like T4 or whatever, then we can use that separately into the Nmap command. Now see, it's showing Microsoft Windows 7 or 8 or 8.1. So it little bit confused between the OS 7 or 2008 or 8.1. So sometimes we can also use some script in Nmap, that is called as NSC script, by which we can get more information about the target. So there is a script SMB discovery which scan the operating system more specifically by scanning it SMB server, right? So if it is a Windows operating system, by scanning its SMB server, it can give us the more specific result about the operating system. So now we'll use that to get our operating system more specifically. So for that we'll use the script SMB OS discovery. Okay. So now how to use the script? The normal command nmap, then the timing option, suppose T4. Then to use a script, we need to use the option --script, followed by the script name. Here the script name is smb-os-discovery. Then the IP address, that is 192.168.1.44. Now see, we get the operating system more specifically Windows 7 Home Basic 7601 Service Pack 1. Right. So this way we can also use the script, NC script, which is available in Nmap. Now go for the last type of scanning, that is vulnerability scan. So here for vulnerability scan we use a very simple script in Nmap, that is VULN, which can find out simple vulnerability in a particular system, that is the SMB related vulnerability, DOS to DOS vulnerability, and if there is any web services is running, then some basic web service vulnerabilities like cross-site scripting or something like this. So now I am going to use that particular script VULN to find out the basic vulnerability into the target machine. So how can you use that? Very similar. Nmap -t4, it's 192. Okay, before going to the IP address, okay, no problem. We can also give the IP address at first. It's 192.168.1.44. Then the script dash script, we are going to use the script VULN. The most important thing is that the sequence is not mandatory for the Nmap command, but you need to remember at first always you need to use the command Nmap. Okay, so let's see. We get lots of vulnerabilities on the open port, and the vulnerabilities like SMB, VULN, MS17-010, it's vulnerable. Remote code execution vulnerability is there. Okay. And, any other vulnerability? No. There's no other vulnerabilities there. Right. Great. So this way you can also find out the vulnerability by using the command nmap. Okay, tool nmap. Now I'm showing you another option in nmap to set the output option, right? So suppose we want the output option to be set into a text file. Okay, so nmap, then dash the timing option, suppose 4. Then suppose we want to store the vulnerability scan result, right? And dash script VULN 192.168.1.44. Then dash ON, dash small o capital N, that output option is used for text file. Suppose I want to set the result into the root, and under root there is a folder my file, and then the name is suppose workshop scan.txt. So this is for text file. If you want to save this result into a XML file, then instead of the option -on you can use ox, and the extension is .xml, and for grabbable format you need to use -og. Okay, so now this time I am going to store the result into a text file, right? Okay, so we got the result. Okay, got the result, and let's see is that saved or not into a text file. all the result have been set, right? Okay, so that's great. So more or less we are discussing some basic of Nmap. So this is not the all thing about the Nmap, but this is the basic about the all map, about the Nmap. So along with that, there are lots of other scanning option are also be there, like no ping scan, aggressive scan, ACK scan. Okay, so lots of scanning option are there. So definitely in if we have more time, then we'll discuss about that. But today we don't have not enough time to discuss all these things in very details. So we need to discuss about the some other uh, phase also. Like so, still now we cover up like reconnaissance and scanning. Now I would like to show you another thing. Okay. So now I would like to show you another very important tool, that is Niches, by which one can perform the scanning. Okay. So this is basically a paid tool and corporate tool which has been used in VAPT purpose. Okay. So let's see how can we use this tool. Okay. So now for scanning, suppose we go to the part new scan option, and you can see there are lots of scanning option are there, like host discovery, basic network scan, advanced scan, okay, advanced dynamic scan, malware scan, mobile device scan. So lots of scanning option are there, but for the time being I'm only interested about the network scan. So go to the option basic network scan, right? And now here is the name. Okay, so I'm giving you some name, then the description, demo, and the target. So now my target is 192.168.1.44. Okay, so you can put the multiple IP address here one by one, or you can also add these from a text file as well. Okay, you can basically upload the target from a file as well, right? Now schedule, so you can also enable the scheduling. So you can also schedule this scan once or daily or weekly or monthly or yearly as well. Okay, and start time and date is also there. Time zone you can also specify. Then notification, if you want the notification into any email ID, then you can also provide that email ID. So it will scan and give you the notification into that particular email ID, right? Then discovery port scan, common port, you can also scan all port, or you can custom the port number as well. So this time I'm going for the all port scan, right? And ping host using the TCP, ERP and ICM, right? Then scan type, default scan for known web vulnerabilities, scan for all web vulnerability quick, and scan for all web vulnerabilities complex. So this time I'm going for the default one. And report, so allow user to edit the scan report. So if you don't put that, then you can edit this report as well. Now advanced option, there is a default option for default 30 simultaneous host are scan, and 4 simultaneous check per host are performed, and 5-second network read timeout. Okay, as I told you, the timing option in Nmap, right? So here is the option 5-second network read timeout. Okay, and if you want to scan in low bandwidth, then go for the scan low bandwidth links option. In low bandwidth, it scan 20 simultaneous host max, sorry, 2 simultaneous host maximum and 2 simultaneous check per host, right? And 15-second network read timeout. So this time I'm going for the default one, that is 30 simultaneous host maximum and 4 simultaneous check per host and 5-second network read time. Now I can save this option. Okay. Right. And further you can launch this scan. So scan already started. So once it complete that scan, it will able to find out all the vulnerabilities, known vulnerabilities basically about that particular IP address, right? So let's wait for the result, and further the result which we got from these two phase of hacking, that is from reconnaissance and scanning, depending upon all that information in the third phase, that is gaining access phase, we basically penetrate or get into the system using all the information which we get in previous to scanning phase, right? So once it complete, then we will go for the next phase, that is gaining access phase. একটু ব্যস্ত আছি, বলো না, বলো না, বলো বলো, রেখে দেবো, বলো, সেরকম বলে রেখে দেবো, নিয়ে যাচ্ছ, ঠিক আছে, দিয়ে দাও। continuing, so let's check the result. It's till now it's running, so it's showing host 1. Till now we only get the information, okay, and information is there, not yet we receive any vulnerabilities, actual vulnerabilities. Okay, we got something else. Okay, so we got one critical unsupported OS and one high vulnerability, that is MS17-010, which we also got in Nmap scan, vulnerability scan, by using the script vuln, right? So it's a remote code execution vulnerability. Multiple remote code execution vulnerability exist in the Microsoft Server message block, that is SMB server version 1, right? So now the point is that more or less we got the vulnerabilities from the target machine, but how can you use that vulnerability, right, to really penetrate inside the system? As I already discussed about few terms like vulnerability, exploit, right? So vulnerability means the weakness or loophole. So we already got that vulnerability, but to penetrate or gain access of the victim machine, we need some exploit. So I already discussed about the exploit, term exploit, that is the code which is used to get or take the advantage of the vulnerability to get inside the system, right? So where can you get that exploit or code? So still now we don't have the enough at this stage we don't have the enough capabilities to write our own code. So in this scenario we can use some framework like Metasploit, where lots of exploit are available, okay, which can written for this type of vulnerability. So uh, in other hand you can also write your own vulnerabilities, right? So for this time we are going to use the exploit, right? We are going to use the exploit which is already written into the Metasploit framework. Okay, so let's go inside the Metasploit framework and see how can we use that exploit to penetrate inside the system using the vulnerability which we got from vulnerability scanning phase, right? So let's go to the Kali Linux. Okay, so where is my Kali Linux? Let's go inside the Metasploit framework by typing msf console. Okay, so let's see. If you check, there are total 1749 exploit there, which is basically used to penetrate inside the system, and 1002 auxiliary are there, 302 post exploit are there, which is used after exploiting the system, and 536 payload, 40 encoders which encode the payload, and 10 nodes are available. So now for this time we are basically interested about the exploit, and now we need to check if there is any exploit are available into the Metasploit framework related to the vulnerability which we got from the vulnerability scanning, that is MS17-010. So how can we search that? By using the simple command search. Now the vulnerability name MS17-010. Okay, so let's see. Two auxiliary are there and two exploit are there. So now suppose I am interested about the exploit only. So let's start from the first exploit. So this is the first exploit which is available related to the vulnerability MS17-010. Right. So now let's use this exploit. So how to use an exploit? By using the simple command use. So now this is basically a general exploit. So we need to use some specific values to this particular exploit, that is the parameter like the IP address, port, all that thing. So now we need to check which options we need to set into this particular exploit. So how can you check that option? By using the command so options or simply option. Okay. So now we need to set the R host. R host, that means the remote host, right? So remote host IP address is 192.168.1.44. So let's set the R host. So the command is set, then R host, it's 192.168.1.44. And port is, our port is already set, that is 445. Let's check from the result the port 445, the status of port 445. Okay, let's go. It's showing open. So let's use the port 445. So it's already set, so no need to change the R port. Otherwise, if you want to change the R port, then you need to use the same command set R port, then the port number. Now let's check options are set or not. Yes, R host is already set and R port, that is already set. Now let's use the command exploit or run to execute the code into the target machine. Wow, let's see. We are now inside the Windows System 32. We are inside the C. Okay, let's check the IP address. So this is the CMD command prompt of the victim machine, right? So that's why I am using the IP config command. And let's see. The IP address is 192.168.1.44. Now let's use the command. Where am I? So I have the authority system, that means we already have the administrative privilege. So this exploit is also penetrate inside the system as a administrator. right? Now suppose check the name of the different directories in C drive. Now suppose I want to go into the desktop, right? Suppose go inside the users. Okay, before going to the user, suppose I want to delete this file, this directory, right, into the victim machine. So in C drive, if you check, there is a directory name Somojit. In C drive Somojit, right? Now suppose something is written there. Okay. Suppose now suppose I want to check this file from my attacker machine. So let's go inside the directory Somojit cd. There is a text file flag.txt. So how to read this? Type flag.txt. So congratulations, that is written inside the directory, right? So now suppose I want to go inside the desktop, right? Then user, and inside that unknown here desktop is there, cd desktop. Okay, nothing is there. Suppose I want to make a directory in the desktop. Okay, mkdir hack. So there, it's basically create a directory with the name hack into the desktop. Let's see. See. Now suppose I want to delete this directory. So now see, hack is not there. So this is basically the next phase, that is maintaining access. So I already discussed about footprint or reconnaissance, scanning, gaining access, then maintaining access, and lastly the covering track. Okay, so covering track is nothing but to hide your identity. That means suppose you enter into a system target machine, so you just try to delete the registry, or maybe you can delete the log from the victim machine, or maybe you can spoof your IP address or MAC address that no one can find you, right? So that is the covering track part. Right. So this way one can find out the vulnerability from the scanning phase and further penetrate inside the victim machine using the exploit or the vulnerability which is present into the victim machine, right? So basically we don't have the enough time, right, to discuss all these things into very details, or maybe some other attack vector like man in the middle attack, DOS, DDoS, okay, or maybe system password cracking and all that thing. Even for web application, XSS, cross-site scripting, CSRF, cross-site request forgery, SQL injection, all that thing. So I just try to give you a essence of ethical hacking and cyber security, how a attacker or hacker can suppose to start, right, to hack a particular system, right. So by doing this particular workshop, you just get an idea, you just get an essence of cyber security, how to start. But if you really want to be a professional hacker, right, that means professional ethical hacker or penetration tester, then you need to go through all the details of ethical hacking and penetration testing, and further you can also go for the exploit writing, reverse engineering, malware analysis, all that thing, right. So now I'm not going to discuss any more topic in this session. I'm just trying to give you a simple scenario, right, of real life penetration testing, or something related with the CTF type of things, right. So now I'm going to on my victim machine here. Now I'm going to shut down this machine, okay, and I'm start this one as my attacker machine, okay. With the IP address, let's check the IP address. One 192.168.1.46. Okay. So now I am telling you the scenario. So in this particular target machine, right, there are two flags, right. So you need to find out, means first you need to penetrate into the system, and then you need to find out these two flags from this particular machine, right. So let's start. So as I told you, we need to start from the scanning part, right. So let's start scanning. So I already have the IP address, that is 192.168.1.46. Let's perform a ping scan. Not actually ping scan, it's just simple ping to get okay, the host is reachable. Now let's start with the port scan, as we already have the target IP address, okay. So nmap-t5, then for port scan we use -p- option followed by the IP address 192.168.1.46. This time I am going for the TCP scan. I am not using any option, so by default it will scan TCP port. Okay, let's start. Okay, so the port 80 is open. 80 HTTP service is running. Port 135, 139, 445. Okay, so all that port are open. So let's check the version of the service which is running into the victim machine. Okay, nmap as is fee 192.168.1.46. Okay, we got the result. So in port 80, I am seeing bad blue HTTPD 2.7 is running. Okay, so vulnerability may exist in operating system, may exist in hardware, may exist in application software, or also may exist in configuration. Okay, that is basically a misconfiguration vulnerability. So still now I'm discussing about the system software vulnerability in the previous example. So we exploit the vulnerability of the Windows operating system SMB server version 1, right? Now this time I am seeing that bad blue HTTPD 2.7 is running. So is that a vulnerable service? So if you don't have the knowledge, then you can check this in internet or Google anywhere, right? But this is a vulnerable version, bad blue HTTPD 2.7. Let's check. From my experience, I know that this is a vulnerable service which is running into the victim machine. Bad blue 2.7, not download. So let's check this one, exploit DB. Pass through buffer overflow. So this module exploit a stack buffer overflow through functionality ext.dll in bad blue 2.72b and earlier. Okay, so it's basically showing that this is a vulnerable service which is running into the victim machine, right? So if a vulnerable service or application software is running into the victim machine, we can also exploit that. But now the question is that where is the exploit? So I already told you, let's scan for the metasploit. Okay, is there any exploit is available related to that particular vulnerable service or not? If not, then you need to write your own exploit, or maybe you can take it from the exploit DB or some third-party source like GitHub or something like this. Okay, but first we need to scan, means search this vulnerability into the Metasploit framework, that is there any available exploit or exist into the Metasploit framework or not. So first go to the Metasploit framework by typing msf console. Okay, so search for bad blue. Okay, so the version which is running, that is 2.7. So start with this exploit, okay, because the version is matched with this one. Now check the options. So we need to set our host. Set our host is 192.168.1.46 and port is already set, that is 80. Okay, let's exploit or run. Okay, we got the session. We got the meterpreter session, which from which we can execute all the command, right? We can get all the available command in Metasploit framework by using the question mark or L. Okay, see. Now suppose you want to check the process list which are running by using the command ps. All that process are running. Okay, but our this time our aim, lots of command are there, so you can check that. So this is not possible to tell you all that command in this single session. Okay, so you can check that. So now here our main aim is to find out the flag from the system. So now we need to go to inside the system. So use the command cell to go inside to get the CMD of the victim machine. So we got the CMD. Okay, so now in C drive, suppose we are going inside the directory user. Under this unknown is there, so cd unknown dir document. Suppose go inside the document. Okay, we got the first flag, flag1.txt. So let's check what is there inside this flag. Congratulations. Okay, so we got the first flag. Now search for the second one. So maybe in the user, maybe it's inside the admin. Okay, go inside the admin. Access denied. So actually I don't have the administrative privilege, so that's why we cannot go inside the admin, right? So now we need to get the administrative privilege. So exit from cell, we go again inside the meter session and use the command get UID to check. Okay, we have the normal privilege. Okay, so now use the command get system to get the administrative privilege, but it will not work. Okay, so for that we need to use some post exploit. Right, so how to use that post exploit? Suppose for the time being I am migrating my process into any other stable process. This is not the mandatory thing. Okay, just migrating my process to 1744. Right. Now send this meter session into background. Now search for the post exploit related to the term bypass UAC, that is bypass user account. Okay, so there are lots of exploits are available related to bypass UAC. Let's start from the first one. To use a post exploit, simply we use the command use, then exploit name, then check the options which you need to set. So you need to set session. So our existing session, let's check what is the ID of the existing session by using the command sessions-l. So session ID is 1. Okay, let's set session ID 1. Check is that set or not. Yes, it's set. Now exploit. See what happened. Okay, that. So meter session 2 is open. Now use the command get system. Now check get UID. Now it's showing authority system. That means we have the administrative privilege. Now go into the cell. City space user, then admin, city space admin. Now we can able to go inside the admin, right? Now go inside the document. Now dir. Okay, we got the flag 2 as well. So let's check what is inside the flag 2. Bravo. Okay, we got the flag 2 as well. So successfully we are able to find out these two flags which is there inside the victim machine. So this is just a simple, very simple implementation of the CTF type of things. Okay, but if you really want to be a professional hacker, you need to go through a lot. Okay, so this is not possible to cover up all these things into this very small session. Okay, so that's why I recommend you, if you really want to be a professional hacker and if you really want to learn about the cyber security and ethical hacking, and if you want to build your career into cyber security and ethical hacking, okay, then you can go through all these things. Okay, then you can only able to be a professional hacker, right? Okay, so for that purpose, one more important thing is that how can you mitigate this type of things. So to mitigate this type of things, you need to check is your system software as well as the application software is updated or not, and if the patch management is there or not, means you need to keep the updated patch into the system to fight against this particular vulnerability. And also you need to use good firewall or antivirus into your system to protect against this type of threat, right? So for further study or further communication, for further queries, you can contact with Mr. Samojit Mukherjee. Okay, I think he's there, so you can also give your question or queries inbox to Mr. Samojit Mukherjee, and his number is also there. You can call him for further reference, right? So, and you can also go through our official website, okay, that you can get all the details about all the courses and all the field which is available, okay, and through which you need to study, right? So I'm going to close this session here, and for further queries or for further any doubt, you can contact with Mr. Samojit. Okay, I hope he also shared his contact number over chat. Okay, and okay, so that's all. Thank you. Bye bye. So see you on next session, and my another session is there in next week, that is on digital forensics. So you can also join on that particular workshop to get a basic knowledge and essence of the digital forensic, right? Okay, so thank you. Bye bye. See you soon.